Hello there ladies and gentlemen, I'm Paul TX141 Walsh, welcoming you to an all new World of Warships gameplay today on our channel. In this episode I'm sailing out a new Tier 7 British free experience premium battleship known as the Nelson in a Tier 7 Domination game on the map Shards. The focus of today's gameplay is on the concept of pushing as a battleship when there's a large number of enemy destroyers. The idea being that on most occasions you will want to be behind friendly ships so that way they can spot the torpedoes well in advance those torpedoes coming near your ship, so that way you can take evasive action, as the majority of battleships lack the manoeuvrability to just respond on the fly. The Nelson not being an exception, with a top speed of 24 knots, a 750 metre turn circle radius and a 14.9 second rudder shift as displayed here. Mean that to dodge incoming torpedoes, particularly when they're coming in on one of our broadsides, is going to be an absolute nightmare and will be susceptible to taking a large amount of damage. But at the same time, what we have to consider is, what do we do in situations where we're pushing forward but we do not have a friendly ship in front of us or close behind us with a hydroacoustic search consumable active in order to alert us to the incoming torpedoes? How do we manage and mitigate the incoming damage? Well, that's what I'm going to be demonstrating here in my experience. Now, as we make our way towards the centre of the map, what's my opening game plan? Well, my idea is the Nelson is not a fast ship, so if I'm going to make a push, I need to start the push quite early on in the game, otherwise I'm just going to be left behind my team. That automatically, based on my central spawn position, rules out Objective Charlie, because it's going to take me ages to get to that objective and the initial confrontations and ships will start to fall over there. Likewise, my lack of manoeuvrability means that pushing into Objective Alpha is going to be a very high risk situation, because if there's a large enemy force, or in particular the enemy destroyers decide to prioritise that objective, I'm heading into an area where I cannot escape the threat of torpedoes and I'm going to have difficulty in turning the ship around if I need to retreat. So instead, what I'm planning to do is push Objective Bravo, because it's the most open area on the map. However, in order to shut down the open threat of torpedoes in the water, particularly from the Bleacher and the Shards, who both have the ability to stealth torpedo, with their torpedo range exceeding their detectability by sea, the torpedo range of the Bleacher being 8 km, meanwhile the Shards having 10 km torpedo range, and also the torpedo reload booster consumable that we have to keep in mind, which quick reloads their 2 quadruple sets. We need to position ourselves such that we limit the number of angles the torpedoes come from. So what I'm planning to do is position myself off to the eastern side of Objective Alpha, using the land masses along the 4 line on the minimap on the bottom right hand corner of your screen in order to shield my western side, or the port side of my ship. Then I can start to think about where the torpedo is going to come from, and the only place they can come from is from Objective Bravo. Unless of course my team completely collapses from Objective Charlie and the enemy team perform a quick flank through the eastern side of the map. So I'm always keeping my eye on the minimap to see what's coming down that side. But if my team are able to hold up against the threat from Objective Charlie, it means that I only have to worry about torpedoes coming from one overall direction. And let's say it's a 60-degree angle torpedo influx, that means I don't have to do too much manoeuvring to dodge the incoming torpedoes. Now in the meantime, as I'm continuing to make my way to my starting position, we can already see how the slow nature of the ship is going to leave me susceptible as I'm pushing towards my starting position to torpedoes coming in on my starboard side. And as I'm making my way over, I see the enemy shores pushing rather aggressively into Objective Alpha, and they seem to be moving rather slowly, thinking perhaps they can use the smoke screen, which they're now situating themselves behind, in order to hide themselves from me. But in return, it would appear that one of our friendly ships is spotting their shores, and we're going to punish them with a rather meaty armour-piercing salvo. Not quite a devastating strike, but still, that's a nice 12,000 HP off of that shores, and they're not going to forget that very quickly. So now this means I can start to push it a little bit further forward, taking some incoming fire from the October Revolution, but nothing that's actually hitting the ship. Now in the meantime, returning to the minimap, and this is going to be important. What I'm realising is that whilst my team haven't made too much ground on Objective Charlie, it looks though the enemy team's push into Objective Charlie is slowing down, as they're taking the objective now and they're not pushing beyond it and leaving a couple of ships behind to finish off the capture. We've got the torpedoes coming from what will most likely be the Bleacher, one of them being 2 triple sets, and therefore I'm not too worried about these torpedoes because I've seen them well in advance thanks to our Sims and potentially our Emerald, who's in the Objective High Alpha with hydroacoustic search active. Regardless of who spotted them, that's an idea of what we can do in preparation when our teammates give us ample spotting time. But now what we can see is some more torpedoes are coming from Objective Bravo, and this is a quadruple set, which tells me instantly this has got to be the Shards, and I need to take evasive action here. Again, I'm grateful to our Sims because they're the ones who have spotted the torpedoes early, and it means I can dodge the incoming torpedoes by a narrow margin. But in return, more torpedoes are coming in. I can see 2 more quadruple sets. This tells me that Shiratsu has used its torpedo reload booster consumable in order to get those additional sets out. So for roughly, say, 1.5 minutes, I don't have to worry about experiencing 16 torpedoes coming towards me from the Shiratsu, only another 8 if they've reloaded them in time. So you can understand the logic I'm trying to apply here. I'm trying to anticipate the reloads of my opponents, particularly the destroyers. Now, making my way into my starting position now, what I'm starting to detect is the fact that the enemy team is actually condensing on Objective Bravo from Objective Alpha. It looks as though the enemy team's push has failed. 2 battleships are retreating up to the northwestern corner of the map, either Knives Out and the October Revolution, and we've also got the Bleacheviska and the Furitaka who've made their way towards Objective Bravo. And the Bleacheviska seems to be inclined to start pulling out of the situation, meanwhile the Furitaka may have potentially beached, alternatively they're just gradually creeping towards Objective Bravo, and we're getting into a position where we can use our armour piercing to punish their exposed broadside, but not before trying to eliminate this New York out of the game. Albeit we're taking our time to try and line up the perfect shots on their broadside, but unfortunately this isn't going to score the kill. Aimed a little bit too low and not enough lead, but never mind, we'll make up for it on the Furitaka. And now what I'm having to think here is that Furitaka is going to have 10km range torpedoes, and they may be trying to get off a desperate broadside of torpedoes before they go down to my incoming fire. So you'll see that I'm starting to turn my ship very slightly towards them, but at the same time I don't want to turn it all the way because otherwise I can't fire with my A, B and C turrets. Instead I want to make sure I can get all the shots off and then quickly turn my bow towards them. Taking them out of the game with a devastating strike, and now turn towards them anticipating that torpedoes are coming my way. And what with another set of enemy torpedoes from the Shiratsu being spotted well ahead of me, meaning they're not going to cross my direction of travel because I'm so slow, I don't have to worry about those. But what I have to now worry about is the Bleacheviska's torpedoes, because you think they've been cutting a broadside across my bow, and what that means is they could have thrown all their torpedoes towards me. So instead what I'm doing is I pointed towards them a little bit, now I'm just turning my ship out, angling it slightly towards their smoke screen, so that way I'm not angled too far around to expose too much of my broadside to be able to get my nose back towards them if the torpedoes are suddenly spotted. I mean, I can only take 1 torpedo rather than multiple. And here's the torpedoes that are incoming from the Bleacheviska. And also by changing up my direction, what it means is if they fired their torpedoes thinking I'd be staying in a certain direction, whether based on the white line indicator or not, I can throw off their aim and dodge their predictive aim. But now I have an Emerald coming back ahead of me, and what it means is I can now use my Emerald as my spotter. And I'm very grateful too, I say thank you in the chat, because they provided me with a smokescreen. Now the value of this smokescreen is just to buy me a little bit of breathing space. It sounds a little bit stupid because I haven't really lost too much health at the moment, but the point is not to recover health, it's to buy me some time to let our Emerald get ahead of me and some friendly destroyers to potentially get ahead of me, such as our Sims, who's just behind me at the moment, or alongside me I should say, and give them the ability to get into their forward positions, so that way they can be my torpedo spotters. Now the Emerald's charging forward, but I don't get the feeling that they've got their hydroacoustic search active, because very shortly the Shiratsu is going to catch them completely by surprise, and here you go. Oh dear. But still, it happens to us all. I experienced it on a number of occasions myself. Unlucky to them, but they did a good job of that smokescreen, and that was smart team play. So now what we have to consider is we're once again at the head of the column. Now we've got a Bleacheviska that's severely crippled and wants to probably get revenge for the damage that's been done to them, and we've got a Shiratsu who's thrown down 2 quadruple sets of torpedoes, but they could have the reload booster active at this point. So what I'm thinking is, look at the minimap, where the last 2 destroyers are spotted, and where they were last spotted is directly north of me. Which means if I carry on this direction for the time being, I head towards the northeastern corner of the map, and then I start to turn towards the north, I'm going to be throwing off my predicted path of travel. And I'm changing up my directionality here. With some torpedoes coming from what appears to be the Shiratsu. It could have been the Bleacheviska. We didn't see a 4th torpedo, from what I recall. But either way, they both fired. Or the Shiratsu fired at our Emerald. The Bleacheviska has apparently fired at our Sims. And whilst we didn't hit them there, now we can see that because the 2 destroyers are condensed into a very limited angle for the time being, although they're staying away from each other, I can now start to think if there's any torpedoes coming towards me, they must be coming from the current position of those 2 destroyers, or within that, say, 30-degree region off to my port side. So this means I don't have to worry as much about reacting to incoming torpedoes for the time being. I can lazily start to bring the bow of my ship around to start pursuing the Bleacheviska, because if the Shiratsu's torpedoes are spotted off to my port side, I'm only going to have to make a small adjustment to dodge the majority, if not all of them. And in return here we hit the Bleacher-Visca once again, not taking them out but damaging their engine, and you can see now I'm starting to angle a little bit further between the two destroyers' last 9 positions, because what this means is if I've got both destroyers off to approximately say 30-degree angles either side of my ship, I can react to the next set of torpedoes, and I do so here against the Bleacher-Visca's incoming 2 triple sets. Now I continue to make my way forward and slow down a little bit. And the reason for slowing down is, again, to throw off the aim of the incoming torpedoes. Because if I slow down, it means that the enemy ships now have to anticipate for the fact I might start randomly accelerating, I might start randomly decelerating. And this is called the Shards to miss me completely by the looks of things. Now, of course, there is an element of luck in here. It may be the case that my opponents predict my actions completely correctly the first time, and I get absolutely ripped apart. But then again, because I've been able to manage my health rather well here, I haven't actually had to use a hill for the time being. Despite being towards the front, I have that hill to fall back on. And I will now continue to push against these ships. Particularly the Shards, because I get the feeling they may have used their booster to throw out another 2 quadruple sets. And it's confirmed immediately there. Thankfully, our Algeri's catapult fighter spots the incoming torpedoes. And whilst the Bleacher-Visca is on a reload with their previous torpedo sets, it means I can start to turn away. Now the reason I'm turning away here is to frustrate the destroyers and also let my Algerie get to the front of the pack. Again, I want a cruiser in front of me so that way I don't have to keep trying to play the prediction game. And now we come back into the safety net of having a friendly ship ahead of us. Of course, the game's pretty much at its end now in terms of the enemy team's ability to come back from this, because our team's got such a points advantage and the enemy team's now going to be down to a single ship. Thank goodness we managed to hit the Bleacher-Visca. And we can see 2 triple sets coming in once again, but note how much distance I pulled from the Bleacher-Visca in my retreating path, which means those 8-kilometer torpedoes are not going to reach my ship, so I don't have to worry as much about them coming towards me. I'm cutting my speed just in case I miscalculated, and that way I can bring the bow of the ship around towards the Nizal a little bit quicker. But I get the feeling those torpedoes aren't going to reach, and it's affirmed, which means now we just need to throw in some shots towards the Nizal as the game's pretty much wrapped up. So it's been a balancing act effectively between being the head of the pack as we take out one of the torpedo tubes permanently of the Nizal and being slightly behind the pack, but hopefully you can see the difference in play. Whereby if you're pushing the battleship and you've got someone ahead of you to spot the torpedoes, you can push with greater confidence because you have that advance warning of at least say 4 kilometers to know torpedoes on their way, get ready to move. Meanwhile, when you're the head of the pack, you can still push, you just need to be sensible in trying to predict what's going to happen. It's not always going to work out. One could argue that I was lucky on a number of occasions here. But at the same time, what one has to appreciate is the fact that if you keep trying to throw off your opponent's aim in the long haul, it's going to screw your opponents over. And now in terms of being screwed over, the Nizal is about to fall to some torpedoes from Algerie, and it's time to take a look at the post-game stats. So in what was a rather quick and simple game, we can see on the path to victory we scored 81,953 HP of damage, and we even picked up the standard achievement of Devastating Strike for destroying an enemy ship with a single artillery salvo, torpedo salvo or aircraft by causing damage to over 50% of the destroyed ship's normal health pool, in this case with a single artillery salvo against the enemy's Furitaka. Coming on to the team scores, we can see that we've topped our team in terms of base experience earned, picking up 1,368. Reflecting on this game, whilst it wasn't an exceptional one by our individual standards, what we can say is our team collectively worked rather well together in seizing control of all 3 objectives, and our individual role was a gradual push through Objective Bravo, on the way crippling the enemy shores who decided to be cheeky and tried to get some shots off on us as they pushed into Objective Alpha. Then we punished the Furitaka who left their broadside exposed across Objective Bravo, and we then kept pushing the enemy team further and further back into their spawn, focusing in particular on dodging incoming torpedoes from the enemy destroyers, the Bleacher-Visca and the Shards, but at the same time maintaining pressure and creeping towards them, in the end helping our team to net the overall victory. Coming on to our detailed report, we have one key item to note here, and that's the number of torpedoes we spotted, a total of 20. This is important because it reverses the first concept I mentioned in today's gameplay, the idea as a battleship when pushing forward, having teammates in front of you to spot the incoming torpedoes. At certain instances, when we were at the head of the column, we were spotting the torpedoes for our teammates, and whilst our teammates were in more manoeuvrable ships, such as the Sims behind us or the Algerie, what it means is our team do not have to take that potential damage from the torpedoes, which could be life-threatening in certain situations to their ships. So we're doing our job in preventing the lethality of the enemy team just as much as our teammates are doing so for our own ship's health. And finally, coming on to credits and experience earned, we can see that after additions and deductions, we walked away with 237,956 silver credits and 3,140 commander experience. To conclude, hopefully today we've demonstrated that whilst ideally you would want to push into an objective as a battleship captain with a smaller ship ahead of you so that ship can spot the threat of incoming torpedoes from the enemy's destroyers in particular, sometimes that asset is not available to you, and as a result you will need to lead the column or alternatively push alone and spot the torpedoes for yourself. Now in doing so, due to your lack of manoeuvrability, it may be an intimidating prospect, but you can still outmaneuver those torpedoes in the fact that you need to think along 3 lines. What torpedoes are coming towards you in terms of their range and their detectability by sea, where are those torpedoes going to be approximately coming from in terms of the relative angle and then the last known ship of the enemy's destroyers, or trying to think where would the destroyer be in the open water ahead of you. And finally, when are those torpedoes going to be coming, not just in terms of their relative speed, but more importantly in terms of the reload and any consumables that the enemy destroyers can use, such as the Japanese destroyers, in order to boost the reload for a temporary period of time. And we saw that in particular with the Shards today, trying to anticipate when they would use that consumable to send out 16 torpedoes rather than 8. And if you can try to anticipate all 3 of these regards, your survivability is going to increase as a battleship captain massively, because you may not be able to dodge every single torpedo, unlike what we saw today, but you can dodge the vast majority, and those that do make it past your ship will be spotted for your teammates, so that way they're less likely to be collected by them. Try to typically have torpedoes on the brain, and you'll find that can help you secure the victory for the day. And so I've been TX141, and if you have enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, comment or subscribe for future World of Warships videos on my channel. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking to get into the wonderful game that is World of Warships today, it's free to sign up and you may do so using the link in the description of this video. But otherwise, until next time, as always, take care and fair seas.